Michael Wittmann remains one of the most recognized and controversial figures of the Second World War. His name is synonymous with the formidable Tiger I heavy tank and the almost impossible feats ascribed to him by wartime German propaganda. But for modern historians, his career is inextricably linked to the organization he served, the Waffen-SS. Wittmann was born in 1914 in rural Bavaria. After obligatory service in the National Labor Service, he joined the German army, but in 1936, he transferred to the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler, LSSAH. This decision placed him within the armed wing of the Nazi Party, a force that, while initially a political guard unit, became an elite fighting corps that recruited zealously and demanded absolute loyalty to the Führer. By the end of the war, the Waffen-SS would be declared a criminal organization at the Nuremberg trials due to its pervasive involvement in atrocities and war crimes. Wittmann's military legacy cannot, therefore, be viewed in isolation from the political and moral context of his service. His first combat experience came during the invasion of Poland, 1939, and the Battle of France, 1940, where he operated a light reconnaissance vehicle. These early campaigns exposed him to the speed and efficiency of the Blitzkrieg Doctrine, paving the way for his transition to mechanized warfare. Wittmann's true military calling began with Operation Barbarossa in June 1940, operating Panzer III medium tanks on the vast, brutal Eastern Front. He quickly distinguished himself as a focused and daring commander. However, the German armored advantage was rapidly challenged by the arrival of the Soviet T-34 tank. To regain supremacy, Germany developed the Panzerkampfwagen Beek Tiger I. This tank was a technical marvel of its time. Weighing 57 metric tons, it mounted the fearsome 88mm KWK-36 L-56 gun, capable of penetrating the armor of almost any Allied tank at long range. Crucially, its thick, upright armor, up to 100mm on the front, glacis made it nearly impervious to most Allied anti-tank weapons at combat ranges. Wittmann was among the first to receive specialized training on this complex machine, and in late 1942, he joined the newly formed SS Heavy Panzer Battalion 101, attached to the LSSAH. The Tiger required a fundamental shift in German tank tactics. It was too slow and fuel-intensive for the rapid movements of the Blitzkrieg. Instead, it was best used defensively, exploiting its thick armor and long-range firepower to ambush and hold ground. Wittmann excelled in this deliberate, concentrated approach. Wittmann's reputation crystallized during the Third Battle of Kharkov, 1943, but his public fame was cemented at the Battle of Kursk in July, 1943. This enormous clash, Operation Citadel, was Nazi Germany's last major strategic offensive on the Eastern Front. Wittmann commanded a platoon in the fierce fighting in the southern sector. His unit was often thrown into action as a reactive firewall against massed Soviet armored formations. The claims that emerged from these engagements were spectacular. Wittmann's crew was reported to have destroyed dozens of Soviet tanks and vehicles in a short period. The High Command immediately recognized the propaganda value of such an ace. They needed heroes to mask the devastating strategic reality. Germany was losing the war. Wittmann was awarded the Knight's Cross in January 1944 and the Oak Leaf soon after. The figures attributed to him, which would eventually total over 138 tank kills, were broadcast nationwide. However, historical analysis of primary sources reveals significant discrepancies. Battlefield reports often included double counting, unconfirmed kills, and destruction of non-armored vehicles in the total count. Historians, including Bovington, now argue that while Wittmann was undoubtedly a skilled and daring commander, the kill figures were strategically amplified by the state to create a powerful, inspiring myth for both the troops at the front and a beleaguered civilian population. By the spring of 1944, Wittmann was famous across Europe. He was deployed to Normandy to defend against the impending Allied invasion. His defining moment came on June 13, 1944, just 1 week after D-Day. Near the town of Villers-Bocage, Wittmann was commanding a single Tiger when he spotted a British armored reconnaissance column, elements of the highly decorated 7th Armored Division, the Desert Rats, advancing unexpectedly along a road Recognizing a critical tactical opportunity, Wittmann launched an unauthorized solo attack. Driving parallel to the British column, he systematically engaged and destroyed a line of vehicles, including Cromwell and Sherman tanks, half-tracks and carriers. The speed and shock of the attack shattered the British advance, costing them a significant number of tanks and halting their objective, the capture of Caen. The psychological impact of this event was perhaps greater than the material losses. It provided the German forces with a desperately needed local victory, and the propaganda machine worked overtime. Wittmann received the Swords to the Knight's Cross, an exceptional honor. He was now enshrined in the national consciousness as the quintessential hero, capable of turning the tide of battle through sheer will and technical superiority. For the Allies, however, his name became a byword for the danger of the Tiger. He was designated a top priority target. The legend's end came swiftly. By late July 1944, the relentless pressure of Allied air, superiority, and overwhelming material advantage had decimated the German forces in Normandy. On August 8, 1944, Wittmann led a counterattack during the opening phases of Operation Totalize, a major Allied push south of Caen. Leading a platoon of 6 Tigers from his unit, he advanced across open ground near the village of Saint-Aignan-de-Crémenil. This open advance was a tactical disaster, a violation of the Tigers' defensive strength. Wittmann drove into a prepared ambush set by both British and Canadian forces. To the northeast, the British 1st Northamptonshire Yeomanry, equipped with the powerful Sherman Firefly, a Sherman tank modified to carry the 17-pounder anti-tank gun, waited. To the west, the Canadian Sherbrooke Fusiliers were strategically positioned. In the ensuing engagement, Wittmann's Tiger was struck on the engine compartment or upper hull. The penetration caused a catastrophic explosion, known as a brew-up, instantly killing Wittmann and his entire crew. The Tiger's turret was violently blown from the chassis, landing yards away, a dramatic symbol of the legend's sudden end. The precise source of the killing shot remains one of the most debated mysteries of the war. For decades, credit was attributed to the British Fireflies, but recent analysis of after-action reports and testimonies also strongly implicate the Canadian Sherbrooke Fusiliers. The identity of his vanquisher is, in a way, irrelevant. The strategic failure of the counterattack and the effectiveness of the Allied ambush were what truly ended the threat. Wittmann and his crew were initially buried in an unmarked shell crater. In 1983, his remains were discovered and reinterred at the La Cambe, German war cemetery in Normandy. His grave remains a point of interest, occasionally drawing far-right elements attempting to mythologize his service. Wittmann's legacy today is a perfect case study in the intersection of military, history, and propaganda. The proponents, enthusiasts, and some military historians still view him as a brilliant tactician whose aggression, keen battlefield eye, and mastery of his machine allowed him to achieve impossible results. They point to the demonstrable impact he had at Villers-Bocage. The critics, academic historians, caution against elevating him above the moral and political context of the Waffen-SS. They stress that his kill count is unreliable, inflated by a desperate regime, and that his greatest success, Villers-Bocage, was heavily reliant on pure surprise and Allied mistakes. Ultimately, Michael Wittmann was a highly capable, audacious tank commander who achieved undeniable tactical successes, but his story was meticulously curated and weaponized by the Nazi regime. He remains an enduring figure, not just for his actions on the battlefield, but as a chilling reminder of the power of propaganda to shape history and create martyrs out of men serving a criminal cause.